Okay, right, next we have is Paul Moulton from Isle of Man Television. Good afternoon, Paul, fast am I.
This is when you meant to say last but not least.
Well, okay, if you want me to. Mr. Paul Moulton, last but certainly not least.
Thank you. But on a serious note, I think a lot of people are going to be very concerned with that last question just asked there, that a week's gone by and we still don't know the variant. I mean, this can't be totally the way that other jurisdictions are operating, because it's really important to your case, isn't it? Because if it is this vicious one that's 60, 70% more active, that's why we're in the situation we're in, isn't it? If it turns out not to be, you might be able to release our borders and controls a little bit earlier. This is very important information which you don't yet have.
Well, Paul, the waiting time is the same waiting time as the rest of the United Kingdom have to wait. It takes 4 to 5 days to go through the process and get it back. Liverpool had shut over the holiday period. We had hoped to get it back by the end of Friday. They didn't look at it till Monday because they were shut over the bank holiday and weekend period. So it is what it is. I think I'll bring in the Director of Public Health to yet again explain that these variants don't make you any worse from a health point of view. They just maybe enable it for you to catch it quicker. And therefore, the processes that we've put in place mean that we should be absolutely fine. But I think Henrietta would maybe explain in more detail, please.
Yes, thank you, Chief Minister. And really, it's a question of going over what we've gone through several times, I think, already, which is that the genetic variant does not make any difference to the management of clusters and outbreaks. That's still done in the way that we are doing it, and knowing the variant would make no difference to that. The variant is of interest from epidemiological perspective only. That said, there will be new knowledge accruing that may help us in the future, but that knowledge is not in existence at present. And that is if we find out from studies across, based on large numbers, that the variant seems to have different properties compared to the other forms of the virus in terms of the time course for incubation, the length of time it takes you to be infective, the viral load that is related to infectiveness. If any of that is shown to be different from what we have experienced at present, obviously we will change our protocols, as will everybody else, but at present we have no evidence to indicate that that should be being done.
Can I ask you when you expect to know which variant we have?
Well, you say which variant we have. We quite probably have multiple variants in all the different positive cases we've had recently.
Okay, and do you know when we're going to know exactly what we've got?
Well, we expected to get the results back with a turnaround time of 5 days, so we would have hoped to get some, I suppose, by close of play for the labs today. We're still not at close of play for labs today, so we may get something in this evening, or if not, Monday.
And that'll be released through a press release straight away, will it? Or not until wait till Monday?
That's what the Chief Minister has indicated.
Thank you very much. And my question...
Paul, in the second part of your answer, there is a difference between the outbreak case in New Year's Eve and the second outbreak case on where they'd travelled, how the infection had happened, who they'd mixed with, and that's why there was a difference in how we've handled this. The second outbreak was far more serious as from the mixing and where they had been rather than the first outbreak, and that's why, given the seriousness of it and where the you could say secondary infection had come from, that the decision was to go for the circuit break. So there was a clear difference between the two outbreaks. Just thought I'd clarify that.
Yeah, I'm sure you're aware what's happened in Queensland today. They literally got the UK variant, as they're calling it, and went into immediate 3-day lockdown because they're so worried that the transmission rate is so much higher, and that's their mini circuit breaker because of it. And I'm assuming that's why we went to the level we went to straight away, because the potential was there, wasn't it? I mean, this is what it's about, isn't it? The potential was we could have been with this UK variant.
Well, we went into a different stage on the 23rd of December, Paul, where we insisted on people coming back having a day 1 test and a day 13 test, and that was because of the increase in the infection rates in the United Kingdom. There was a significant infection rate. We took action straight away. But yeah, we will no doubt will be more knowledgeable on whether we have the variant. But as Dr. Hewitt has already said, it doesn't impact on the way that we deal with the cases at this moment in time, unless more data comes along that advises us to change our policies.
And if it's not here, could we go down to 14 days? Because you mentioned that 14 days, or we're definitely rigidly stuck to 3 weeks, whatever happens.
Well, it's 14 days if you refuse to have the day 1, day 6, 7 and 13.
No, that's 21 days. I'm talking about your lockdown. Just would you move it down to just 14 days if it turns out we haven't got the new variant in the community, or any cases at all?
Well, we've got to review. We haven't been a week yet, so it's important to see what the data is. Obviously, when we're
exactly.
If there's still outbreaks in the community, whether it's a UK variant, a South African variant, Spanish, you name it, wherever it come from, we will still wait until we've had the 14-day period of it not being in the community. Obviously, I've said before, we're not counting cases of people who've travelled, and it's as a result we get an infection from day 1 testing or 6/7 or the day 13. So it's business as usual. Let's see what happens over the coming week, and we can give you as much information as possible when we have a clearer picture about community spread.
Okay, just to finish with, sorry, because I take a lot of time. Could this lockdown go down into 14 days if nothing appears that is different from what we could have had usually? In other words, this other one is not in our community at all. Could we just be on 14 days, or will you stick to that 3 weeks before you make any more decisions?
Well, I can't say never. We'll have to wait and see, Paul. I mean, I know an awful lot of people would like me to say yes, and in a fortnight's time, if we've had 14 days with no cases, we'll take the 3-week circuit break and finish it earlier. It may well be that we can lessen it, but really that will be near the time, dependent on advice from our medics, the capacity at our hospitals and public health. So really it's just too early to try and... I'm not going to make promises that can't be delivered at this moment in time.
I was just asking if that was a policy, that's all really, to have some idea.
Okay, right, thank you very much.